Well, good evening. My name is Matt Hadley, and I'm the senior pastor here at the United Methodist Church of Whitefish Bay. And on this holy Saturday, I long for the time when we could be worshiping together, so I could be looking into your faces. But I want to welcome you and thank you for the ways in which you have been worshiping with us online. Many of our community of faith have been very faithful logging in to our live stream and Facebook Live, and I am aware that there are a number of others who are part of churches that don't have this technology, or maybe who don't have a church home, and they've been giving me feedback, but that they have been tuning in with us. And so I welcome you. And it is my prayer that this is a meaningful time of worship. We'll be gathering together again tomorrow for Easter Sunday at 9 o'clock with our contemporary service and 10:30 for our traditional service. And for those of you who purchased Easter flowers, they're going to be on 816 Glen, right in our church walkway with your names on them, so you can come and that those flowers can beautify your own homes. But today is a silent day. Outside it was beautiful and sunny, but it's turning darker. It is turning colder. And I think that's the right feel for what we are doing this evening. And so let's allow this prayer to call us to worship this evening. O God, creator of heaven and earth, grant that as the crucified body of your dear Son was laid in the tomb and rested on this holy Sabbath, so may we await with him the coming of the third day and rise with him to newness of life, he who now lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
The good shepherd for the sheep is offered. The slave hath sinned, and the son hath suffered. For our atonement, while we nothing heeded, God interceded.
For me, kind Jesus, was thine incarnation, thy mortal sorrow, and thy life's oblation, thy death of anguish and thy bitter passion for my salvation.
Therefore, kind Jesus, since we cannot pay thee, we do adore thee, and will ever pray thee. Think on thy pity and thy love unswerving, not our
A reading from the book of Job in the 14th chapter. A mortal born of woman, few of days and full of trouble, comes up like a flower and withers, flees like a shadow and does not last. Do you fix your eyes on such a one? Do you bring me into judgment with you? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? No one can. Since their days are determined and the numbers of their mouths is known to you, and you have appointed the bounds that they cannot pass, look away from them and desist, that they may enjoy, like laborers, their days. For there is hope for a tree if it is cut down, that it will sprout again, that its shoots will not cease. Though its roots grow old in the earth and its stump dies in the ground, yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth branches like a young plant. But mortals die and are laid low. Humans expire, and where are they? As waters fail from a lake and a river wastes away and dries up, so mortals lie down and do not rise again until the heavens are no more. They will not awake or be roused out of their sleep. Oh, that you would hide me in Sheol, that you would conceal me until your wrath is past, that you would appoint me at a set time and remember me. If mortals die, will they live again? All the days of my service, I would wait until my release should come.
Child of mine, dear precious child,
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 1 through 8. Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves also with the same intention. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has finished with sin, so as to live for the rest of your earthly life no longer by human desires, but by the will of God. You have already spent enough time in doing what the Gentiles like to do, living in licentiousness, passions, drunkenness, revels, carousing, and lawless idolatry. They are surprised that you no longer join them in the same excesses of dissipation, and so they blaspheme.
Matthew 27, verses 57 through 66. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone.
And so today is Holy Saturday. For the disciples, yesterday, that is Friday, was the worst day ever. Today is a day of darkness, a cold stone tomb with a sealed entrance and guards. The Gospels say little about the disciples' behavior on Holy Saturday, but they had to wonder, does Good Friday have the final and last word? Now, not many churches have Holy Saturday services. They arrange for Easter vigils of prayer, yes, and some others who are a larger church that have Saturday night service in addition to the Sundays. Some of those churches even take this day and they celebrate Easter on Saturday. I don't think that's right. Holy Saturday is no one's favorite religious holiday. Holy Saturday is a very quiet day, a day where we sit and we wait. Very quiet indeed, this eve of Easter. Now, on the eve of Christmas morning, as we gather together in sanctuaries, in our Christmas Eve candle lighting ceremonies, we sing a song, Silent Night. But today, this day, Holy Saturday, on the eve of Easter, we can see that this is the silent night. And we're not accustomed to silence. In this day and age, prior to a month ago, we were not accustomed to quiet days or quiet at all, especially in our big cities. No one misses the street noise. We've become accustomed to it. I was in Manhattan, New York City one year for a Christmas blizzard, and we walked right down the center of a street in Manhattan, a street that was normally hustling and bustling. One of the members of the church sent me a little story that took place in Manhattan just about a week ago. A young couple had a young boy, and the boy called for his parents and said, "What's that noise? Mom, Dad, what is that noise? I don't know what that noise is." And they said to their son, "Those are the birds, quiet enough to hear creation." We here at the United Methodist Church of Whitefish Bay have asked, what does it mean to be church in a pandemic? While the closing of public worship and church-based outreach don't mean separation from God, there is real grief around the suspension of these tangible forms of connection to Christ, to others, to the world. This is the first pandemic anyone under 102 years old has ever known. But by no means is the COVID-19 virus, the coronavirus, the only pandemic the church has encountered over more than 2,000 years. As I said yesterday, even if we are not infected, we are all of us affected. The most recent pandemic in the world to really hit this country and the church, what the church had to navigate was the 1918 Spanish flu. They estimate that 1/3 of the world's population was infected, that more than 50 million people died worldwide. Here at home, 1/4 of the United States of America population was infected, and more than 675,000 people died. Maybe as you read the newspaper or watch the news, you've seen the stories of megachurches as well as smaller churches who have decided to not listen to the warnings and the mandates to not have gatherings of more than 10 people with 6 feet separation from each other, placing themselves and all who gather together at risk, placing the congregation in harm's way. This week I read an interesting response to this. I am a subscriber to a bi-weekly publication called The Christian Century. And if you were to go to their website, you can see what they say of themselves. The Christian Century is a not-for-profit, progressive, ecumenical magazine based in Chicago, committed to thinking critically and living faithfully. They say the Christian Century explores what it means to believe and to live out the Christian faith in our time. Now, they launched in 1884 as the Christian Oracle, and it took the current name of the Christian Century at the turn of the century. Some notable contributors have written: Jane Addams, Reinhold Niebuhr, and in 1963, the Christian Century was the first major periodical to publish the full text of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail. It was interesting. In light of this pandemic, the editors of the Christian Century went back through the archives, especially to that period of time when the world was facing the Spanish flu. And it turns out that 102 years ago, there were churches, just like today, that despite the warnings, continued to gather, believed that their faith and worship would keep them safe from contracting the virus. The editors of the Christian Century wrote these words in 1918: "When religion is inevitably tied up with a meeting house, the closing of public worship means a separation from God. But when religion concerns itself chiefly with human welfare interpreted from the divine standpoint, we are unwilling that one single person should die of an epidemic for the sake of an ordinance or a theory." And so too it is today, and so we take precautions. We social distance ourselves. Global pandemics lay bare what the church has long confessed, that all people are deeply and inextricably connected to one another like branches on a vine. So, like tonight, we have been finding new ways to worship together. It remains the church's work to nurture human connections with God and with others, even in times of physical separation. As the editors wrote in 1918, it will be a mistake to accept this as a vacation from religion. But tonight, friends, it appears God is dead. That our praise team is wrong when they sing that praise song, God's not dead. It is difficult for the church to say that Jesus is dead, if even for 2 days. I come back to that sentence. It will be a mistake to accept this as a vacation time for religion. As long as he is locked in a tomb, for some, that might be tempting. For others, a vacation from religion seems even desirable. The chief priests and the Pharisees wanted Jesus dead, and they wanted him locked away, gone and forever, so that that community of faith that Jesus had started would acknowledge that God is dead. You see, it's dangerous if God is alive. It is dangerous if God is on the loose, active in the world and in the lives of committed people. As we heard Sue read, Joseph of Arimathea has already asked Pilate for the body. He was going about it the right way, following the protocol. And what did Pilate really care? He had already washed his hands of this whole matter. But then, on the heels of Joseph, he had to deal with these leaders, these priests, these Pharisees. You can imagine Pilate's irritation. You can imagine how impatient he was with these people. That he was really just entertaining, fleecing them for their tax money. Would this matter never end? I mean, he has to be thinking to himself, I thought you have already literally buried this man forever. My headache needs to be gone. And so when they ask him for protection, he snaps back at them. You have your own guards at the temple. Use them. Make it as secure as you can. You see, they were afraid. The religious leaders were afraid that the followers of the way would pull off the hoax of all hoaxes. They were afraid. Maybe they were even afraid that what he said was true, that death in a tomb could not hold him. With each passing hour that he was dead, they must have gotten a little more comfortable. They weren't going to let it happen. They were thinking to themselves, everyone would be better off if he were gone. Everyone would be better off if he was forever locked away. Well, it certainly would have been better for them. But not just for them. Christians who take vacations from their faith, if pushed, at times would like to keep Jesus locked up as well, thinking, I don't have to be a child of God if God is dead. After all, with Jesus safely locked away in the tomb, there is no call on my life. I don't have to see other people. They can be invisible to me. I can walk right by or just use and abuse them for my own gain. If there is no living God, I'm not compelled to do unto others as I want them to do unto me. I can continue to hate my neighbors or those, especially those who are different than me. There is no divine call, so I can hoard my resources at the expense of others. I can define greatness by my own terms and thus declare myself great. I don't need to forgive those who trespass against me, and I can give in to temptation anytime I want. The least, the last, the lost, if God is dead, I am not compelled to believe anything other than they can stay that way. As long as he stays locked up in that tomb, there is no divine call upon my life. But friends, that's not what I want. Not at all. I want to shout, Jesus, come out of there. I want resurrection. I want a community of faith working together. But on this night, I wait. We all wait. And Matthew, as he was writing his gospel, knew this. Matthew's 2 paragraphs about the burial are needed. We need closure and we need answers to basic questions. What happened to the body? Who prepared it? Where was it entombed? And we too need closure. Closure. I heard an interview on the radio with a man who runs a funeral home. And he said, with this quarantine, in this pandemic, people are dying alone. And it's hard to have closure without a gathering to say farewell. What do you do when you have no chance to say goodbye? Some of us know that very well. But for Matthew, there is more behind the answers to those simple questions of what happened to the body, or who prepared it, or where was it entombed. For Matthew in his gospel, he is concerned to argue for, to provide proofs for the resurrection of Jesus. It is important that there are witnesses. It is important that Joseph of Arimathea is named. It is important that the 2 Marys are there, that they see this happening. But we wait. We wait with hope. And in the current world of coronavirus, we are also waiting. Waiting with hope. In Hebrew, the verbs wait and hope can be rendered by the same word. But in a time of contagion, our waiting does not appear to be enriched by hope any more than theirs was. You see, waiting, like hoping, demands an object. We are waiting for a solution to the inexplicable. We are waiting for deliverance, waiting to be delivered from our vulnerability to nature, of course, and from death. But even more, the ways in which we are vulnerable to self-interest, to lying, to hoarding, that make this pandemic even worse. Which is to say, on this night, we want to be delivered from ourselves. In seminary, I had to read a lot of the classics, and we had to read some Julian of Norwich, the revelation of divine love. Now, the best known, the most famous line from that is this: "But all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." But for others, the favorite line occurs chapters later, when it is the Lord who says, "You shall not be overcome." And so, friends, on this quiet and dark night, I tell you, we will overcome. But for tonight, we wait with hope, filled with faith. Amen.
the dreadful curse for my soul, for my soul. To bear the dreadful curse